Good evening, everyone. I am Alice Lee, and I love that. I think we should stop there. That was awesome. Yes, I am actually Alice Lee, and I chair the board of the Associates of the Boston Public Library. I want to welcome all of you to this very special evening. For the 21st time, the Associates is presenting to you our newest writer-in-residence at the Boston Public Library. And for the very first time, we are presenting our Illustrated Children's Book Fellow. Over the next year, both of these remarkable young women will hone and refine the book proposals that won their respective awards in their competitions. As you will hear in a bit, they both emerged from remarkably competitive fields, as each of these programs now enjoys broad public recognition. This is something that was only a dream when the Writer-in-Residence program started in 2004. These programs grew from the vision and dedication of two people in particular, and the Associates owes them both a deep debt of gratitude. The first is the funder who invested anonymously in the Writer-in-Residence for most of its 2+ decades. They have now added support for the Illustrated Children's Book Fellow to their portfolio. Over time, they have invested over $750,000 to support emerging writers of books for children and young adults. Now, that is, in fact, an incredible commitment to this work and to young writers. As the direct result of their generosity, scores of wonderful books have been created and published. These volumes will continue to educate, challenge, and delight young readers for years to come. The other person who made these programs what they are today was a colleague of ours on the Associates Board of Directors, and a dear friend and a valued friend to so many. You see him there? A valued friend. His name is Alan Andres. It was Alan who initially drew the connection for all of us between our mission of preserving the critical works of the past and supporting the creation of new works to enrich our future. Beyond his commitment to the Associates of the Boston Public Library, Alan's entire life revolved around the written word. From his deep love of books as a child, which developed into an encyclopedic knowledge of literature, to his career first as an editor at Houghton Mifflin, and finally as an independent writer and editor of books, scripts, and periodicals. His enthusiasm for the printed word and his love for finding just the right turn of phrase was infectious, making all of us better readers and conversationalists just by being in his company. Alan's dedication to emerging writers, those with promise but without the means at hand to get their work into the public eye, it ran deep and is what underscored his devotion to the Writer-in-Residence program and his dream for an Illustrated Children's Book Fellowship. Just weeks before his death, this past April, Alan insisted on attending a lunch with our current Writer-in-Residence and alums of the program, refusing to bow to the illness that finally took his life. From the initial vision until just this past spring when he passed away, Alan's devotion to these programs quite literally knew no bounds. It is for these reasons and so many more that the Board of Directors of the Associates has voted to attach his name to these two programs in order to honor all Alan has done. Going forward, they will be called the Alan Andres Writer-in-Residence and the Alan Andres Illustrated Children's Book Fellow. There is my last sentence to you all is my most important. There is simply no one who could deserve this honor more than Alan. It's my privilege to turn the microphone over to the co-chair of the committee that oversees these awards and someone who has had a distinguished career in publishing herself, our dear beloved trustee, Betsy Groban.
If any of you knew Alan, as I did, you know that he would be absolutely gobsmacked and totally delighted to hear this news. I'm Betsy Groban, proud new member of the board of the Associates. As a longtime children's book publisher, I don't mean to sound bitter or anything, but there are a lot of fellowships and a lot of residencies for writers of adult books. That's what makes the programs and the writers that we're honoring and celebrating today so special. And we're profoundly grateful to the anonymous investor who makes all of this possible. I'm going to now put on my glasses. Everyone in this room can, I hope, remember at least one book that you read or that was read to you as a child. Books that we read as children stay with us and make a real difference in our lives. And given all the statistics about how reading enhances academic performance, development of empathy, creativity, imagination, problem solving, et cetera, I can hardly imagine anything more important than supporting and encouraging the creation of excellent children's books. And I don't think we can overstate the importance of what we provide for kids in the way of art generally. As we all know, we're competing with a whole lot of other cultural influences on children now more than ever. Legendary Boston children's book author William Steig once said, "Art has the power to make any spot on earth the living center of the universe. It enhances our sense of wonder, stimulates the adventurousness and playfulness that keep us going." Fellowships that the Associates have awarded over the past 20+ years have resulted in over 80 extraordinary books, both published and forthcoming, including, just to mention a few by authors who happen to be here tonight, Borderless by Jen De Leon, Top Heavy by Rhonda DeChambeau. I must say, I was on the jury that year, and All You Have to Do by Autumn Allen. And of course, we're gathered here right now to honor and celebrate 3 hugely talented writers who will help shape the future of the invaluable art of children's literature. Des Hall, esteemed author, committee member, and final judge for this year's competition, will kick us off. Des.
So tonight is a kind of a birth. And as we human beings know, birth is the time of great excitement. The winds of opportunity and possibility blow on great, great hopes. And to illustrate this, I'd like to share a quote from the great writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez from Love in the Time of Cholera. He allowed himself to be swayed by his conviction that human beings are not born once and for all on the day their mothers give birth to them, but that life obliges them over and over again to give birth to themselves. And for a writer, this quote is especially true. And tonight we're here to celebrate a particular birth for Zarlasht Niaz, the latest and first winner of the Alan Andres Writer-in-Residence program. Miss you, Alan. In the blind judging process, a panel of authors, publishers, and literary agents selected Zarlasht's submission from a record-breaking 526 applications. That's a success ratio possibility of, and I'm not with Stat Kings or anything, but I believe it's 0.02%. Good work, Zarlasht. With the award, Zarlasht will receive a stipend of $70,000, a $20,000 increase over last year's award. Great timing, Zarlasht. In addition to the stipend, Zarlasht will receive $2,500 for coaching and editing and a private office here in the Central Library for her year-long tenure. And that office is pretty snazzy. This, as Alice mentioned earlier, is thanks all to a generous anonymous donor who is clearly invested in the birth of new and promising writers, such as past winners Annie Hartnett and her novel, The Road to Tender Hearts. The new leader of the Writer-in-Residence program, Elaine Demopoulos, and her fantastic The Perilous Performance at Milkweed Meadow. The amazing Jen De Leon and her fantastic novel, Borderless. The incomparable Rhonda DeChambeau and her great novel in verse, Top Heavy. The fantastic Autumn Allen's All You Have to Do. And Natalie C. Anderson's novel, That Kind of Girl. A great list indeed. And tonight, we want to celebrate Zarlasht and her great novel in progress, Unfurling. But first, let's get to know her a little bit. She is an Afghan-American educator and youth services library clerk from Minnesota. She has an MFA in creative writing and a BA in global studies and has taught creative writing across Houston's K-12 schools at the University of Houston. She's the founder and editor of the Afghan Review and garnered an Outstanding Teaching Fellow Award and a Walter Dean Myers Grant. Her winning submission, titled Unfurling, a novel in verse, is a dual perspective story that centers on Afghan-American teens, Yasaman and Zubair. Thanks for help with the pronunciation, Zarlasht. They navigate the issues of identity, Islamophobia, and sibling violence in post-9/11 rural Wisconsin. Zarlasht writes about one of the protagonists in her novel, This. Yasaman can't wait to graduate high school and leave behind her tiny rural hometown, her overbearing Afghan parents, her sparking bomb of a brother, Zubair. There's a few things, however, that makes her senior year bearable. One is her secret love for dance. The second is her new friend Afzal, a foreign exchange student from Afghanistan. And the last is the dream of college, a getaway just on the horizon. She does her best to keep her dancing feelings for Afzal and her controlling brother a secret. But as her crush grows, it's harder and harder to hide how she really feels. She has to be careful to make it through the year without letting her secret spark a disaster. This gripping story and the poetic nature of Zarlasht's writing harkens to a birth rendered beautifully by the great Maya Angelou. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. So Zarlasht, we celebrate your birth tonight as the latest and first Alan Andres Writer-in-Residence of the Boston Public Library. And we look forward to see how you dare to claim the sky. Let's welcome her.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Oh, that was so kind, Desmond. Thank you so much. I'm still shaking. I'm not used to people talking about me. All right, so I'll go ahead and read a few poems from the manuscript that I'll be working on, Unfurling. When someone you love hits you, it's a shock the first time. No one thinks it will happen to them until it does. And you think you'll be angry, but you're sad first, from the new knowledge that someone who loves you could hurt you so bad. Then you get scared. If someone who loves you could do this to you, what could someone who doesn't know you do? My family calls me Yasamen, like the flower, which is funny because I don't smell great and no one ever picks me for anything. I'm more of a dandelion you step on because you didn't notice it, because you're not one of those people who considers them flowers. Still, Modarim, my two sisters, my brother, and most other Afghans call me Yasamen. Padarim is the weird one out. He and his family call me by the name he gave me, the one inked on my birth certificate, an American name. Used by strangers who don't really know me. The name that was supposed to make my life in America easier. Allison. The summer before it happened was like every summer before. The sun was so bright, our vision went blue. Almost overnight, cattails grew, shooting out of the wide, flat fields of grass to surround us, to wave at us, in the wind. Hello. When no one was watching, we rode our bikes with neighbors down to our town's one gas station to buy freezies. We clenched them in our mouths, feeling them bob against our chins with the bumps under our tires, feeling their icy sweat spray our necks while we raced home, before Mom noticed we were gone, before our gums split or the freezies fell. My family is from a faraway country that people call war-torn. At least that's how it's reported on by news anchors, classified in textbooks, and remembered by me and my classmates. War-torn, as if war tore the country apart and not people, as if the mountains crumbled on their own to chuck stones at themselves. Because I am Muslim, it's easy for people to think we were born torn, that the religion we love tore our brains. They think it makes us tear away at each other. A religion is an idea that can be so powerful, it scares people who are too far from it to understand it. Because I am a Muslim girl, people think religion limits my rights, but they have the wrong idea. It's not religion, but fear that limits me. The fear of the wars my parents saw, the fear from seeing what happens to vulnerable girls, the fear that everyone sees vulnerability in me. When Modarim plants rose bushes that grow from our front door down to the bottom of our driveway, fear makes her tell me to never go further than them. I don't want to spend too much time with her fears, or I will start to believe them as my own and forget to dream. Forget that I can run as far as I want and plant new rose bushes around new boundaries for myself when I'm ready. Our bedrooms are bare, like nothing ever lived here. We never think to decorate, never think our surroundings can be more than what they are, that we can be more than what we are. I don't know what Afghan and Muslim would look like on walls, where we can see it, where other people can see it. He had a boombox in the corner of his room we'd sit at. He'd play CDs from our cousins who visited from the city. They brought music we never heard in our town, angry rappers whose words were like hammers. It felt like they were breaking something valuable to get something more valuable, like freedom to express themselves. He'd blast these angry songs at 7 a.m. when he dropped me off at school before I could drive myself. He made his friends sit in the back so I could be next to him in the front, right next to the speakers. It made my ears hurt, but it felt powerful. I was proud to ride with my cool big brother. Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. I'm introducing committee member Rhonda DeChambeau, a former writer in residence whose novel, the aforementioned Top Heavy, written during her residency at the BPL, was published last June. You can find it at your local bookstore or online or at your local library. You'll be glad you did. Rhonda.
Thanks, Betsy. I'm very pleased to be here tonight to talk about the newly established Alan Andres Illustrated Children's Book Fellowship, which is designed to provide an emerging writer of an illustrated book for children with the financial support and editorial assistance needed to complete a work for children from ages birth to about age 10. And the work is supposed to be or intended to be illustrated in some way. So this generous fellowship is open to writers living in New England, and it's judged on the merit of a compelling and original story or concept in which the image and the text have the potential to form an integrated narrative. So while the text is not required to be accompanied by an illustration as part of the submission process, the creator should be mindful of how the work could be illustrated to contribute to the overall effect of the book. The award, as we've talked about already, is intended to provide some support in the form of recognition and sort of bringing attention to a new writer, and also that financial support to include some funds that are earmarked for coaching or editorial support as well. And all of this, of course, is meant to assist our creators in finding a path to publication. So we do wish to thank our esteemed panel of judges for this year's Illustrated Children's Book Fellowship. You may have heard of best-selling author of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series, bookstore owner Jeff Kinney. We had a senior partner at Avitus Creative Literary Agency, Rick Richter, and also senior editor Ariel Richardson of Chronicle Books. So we were very grateful to have really an all-star panel of judges for this first inaugural illustrated fellowship. The judges were unanimous in identifying a top choice in a pool of over 300 candidates. So that was pretty remarkable. The winning manuscript follows a parent reassuring a child about always being able to find them, even in the midst of larger and larger crowds and numbers, using examples from the animal world. And as a bonus this year, the original concept was also beautifully illustrated, tender language met with soft images. And this year's winner, Jessica Ruan, is not only a writer, she's also an illustrator and designer with a bachelor's in fine arts from the Rhode Island School of Design. Originally from the Pacific Northwest, Jessica now lives in Massachusetts, and I hope you'll all join me in congratulating and welcoming to the stage Jessica Ruan.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. It's really an honor to be here today, and thank you all so much for coming. I would love to read to you my full manuscript for my book, 100,000. For context, this book was written for 3 to 5-year-olds and was meant to be read to a child by a parent. So, if you'll suspend your disbelief for a second, I'll be your parent for a second. 100,000. When we take a walk in the woods, you are one person and we are two. You are easy to keep track of if you hold my hand. But if we were in a pack of 5 wolves, I could pick out your distinct smell even if I can't see you. But if we were in a nest of 10 rabbits, it would be too crowded for me to smell. But don't worry, I can tell. You are the one with a different hop, a special twitch of the ear. What if we were in a herd of 50 deer, a blur of legs and spots on fur? I still find you. Your pattern is uniquely yours. But if we lived underground among 100 earthworms, we'd be blind and deaf. But I would feel your vibrations through the dirt. We could still hug, even without arms. What if we were in a colony of 1,000 bats? In the dark, I use echolocation. My ears pick up on the sound waves that bounce off you. What if we become part of a hive of 50,000 bees? In the swarm, I waggle and dance to ask where you are. It takes me a long time to find you. But then I spread my wings and fly in a flock of 100,000 starlings. We cover the sky in a blanket of movement. I call for you, a loud, sharp cry. I call again and again and again, until I finally hear your response. But what if you don't want me to find you? I know that one day you'll grow up. One day you might be far away. We might be separated in a forest of 1,000,000 trees. If I am a tree, I can't see or hear or smell you, but I can feel you through ground. Our roots can send signals, and you can tell me how you're doing, even if we're not together. But that day won't come for a long time. So for now, while you're still small, I'll stay by your side. And if you ever lose your way, just remember one thing. That even in a world of 8 billion people, there is no one quite like you to me. I'll always be here to hold your hand.
That was truly incredible. I'm so impressed by everyone this evening, and it's an honor to be here and part of the program. My name is Jen DeLeon, and it's hard to believe, but I was a writer in residence almost 10 years ago. Don't know how that happens. If you'll indulge me, I just have to share a quick story about Alan. And I'm so grateful and just for his mentorship, and I'm delighted that his name will be carried on through these fellowships. My introduction to Alan was through a phone call. We played phone tag, and I was eager to hear what he had to say, right, why he was calling. And so I called, and actually you picked up the phone, his wife picked up the phone, and you said, "Oh, Alan's walking the dog right now, but he'll be back." And it was just like, I need to talk to him finally. And so we got on the phone, and he said, "Hello, Jen, Alan Andres here. You did not get the fellowship." And I'm like, what? That was my introduction to Alan. And he said, "But you're runner-up, and the committee was delighted with your work." And this was the beginning of my friendship with Alan. The following year, I applied again, and this is just to let everybody know, many people have applied several times, and sometimes you gotta knock on that door twice, 3 or 4 times. And that next year, he left me a voicemail, and he said, "Alan here, I think you know why I'm calling." So Alan was a great mentor, and I just feel like he's in the room with us here. But I also know he's probably with so many of the greats, you know, talking about books right now. Speaking of one of the greats, the late Toni Morrison shared this quote that I adore. She shared that if there is a book in the world that you want to read, but it has not been written yet, then you need to be the one to write it. And in many ways, I feel like all of the books birthed from the Writer in Residence program at the Boston Public Library are those books that we writers and now illustrators really needed as a young person. And what a generous occasion to do that in an office, in the library, surrounded by books that weren't created and then they were created. I remember in my time here in the office, at the time, at least, it was next to David Leonard, the president's office. And sometimes I'd be sitting at my desk and I'd had writer's block and I'd just kind of be staring out the window. And then I would hear David on the phone or come in from a meeting or going to a meeting, and I would suddenly start typing, like anything. I felt like, oh God, I gotta get to work. But it did work. My book, Don't Ask Me Where I'm From, would not exist without the support of this incredible program. Again, speaking of great writers, I want to share with you some words about Yssis Cano-Santiago. She is the current, or I should say the outgoing writer in residence. And reading her application and her materials was, on a personal note, life-changing. Talk about a book that you wish you had had as a young person. This is her, in her own words, her description of why she wanted this fellowship. It was really important to me to write a novel that borrows from my experience growing up as a low-income, second-generation Latinx woman. Additionally, as a public health major in college, I was taught to take a holistic approach to health, viewing it as a state of physical, emotional, and mental well-being. A central theme of my novel is mental illness, specifically hypochondria. Mental illness is highly stigmatized in the Latinx community, and I want to bring awareness to the subject as a Latina diagnosed with generalized anxiety and illness anxiety disorder. Mental illness is on the rise in young people, and therefore I sought to write a story that both speaks to that experience and that can also serve as a resource for greater mental health and substance abuse awareness. Thank you for writing this book, and I can't wait for so many young people to hold it in their hands. Please come up and read a bit from your work, and now your finished manuscript, right?
Thank you, Jennifer, for that wonderful introduction. Before I begin, I want to thank the associates for this incredible opportunity, but I especially want to thank Wendy, Laura, and Vidisha for their kindness and support. So, some background on my excerpt that I will be reading tonight. My protagonist, 10, has just come home to Miami from college to find that her neighborhood is not the same as it once was. It's being gentrified. We rode in silence as the manicured palm trees outside the airport gave way to abandoned warehouses, rusted wire fences, and the landmarks that made Wynwood, also known as El Barrio, where most of Miami's tiny Puerto Rican population lived, home. On our right, the Eugenio Maria de Hostas Community Center was hosting a spirited game of dominoes and serving arroz con gandules to a group of viejitos. On our left, Roberto Clemente Park, named after the famous Puerto Rican baseball player, buzzed with school children playing a pickup baseball game. Across the park stood the old garment warehouse, where only a seasoned resident could spot the outline of a Puerto Rican flag under years of white paint. Driving deeper into the neighborhood, however, there were signs that the Wynwood I once knew was disappearing. We passed a series of formerly bare walls that now boasted a row of tacky beach-themed murals, sunburned tourists waiting in line to enter a new high-end art gallery, and finally, a gray eyesore of a building, the Rubel Family Collection, a private art museum. Abuelita tisked. That museum brought all the investors here. It's why our people and places are being pushed out. No number of new murals will change that. She was right. An under new management sign hung in the window of the local bodega, a Cuban panaderia, and a family-owned auto shop, and for sale signs jutted out from the front lawns of more than 10 homes. All had withstood several Category 5 hurricanes over the decade, but none could survive this one. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to your library. I'm David Leonard, president of the Boston Public Library. I have the privilege of having an office next door to the writer-in-residence during their tenure. First, let me just congratulate Yssis on her work. A tradition we started several years ago was of accepting the actual manuscript and depositing it into our archives department in the special collections area, the very same area that the Associates raises funds to preserve all of the items in that part of our collection. And so this is an important moment to continue that tradition, but also to welcome tonight 2 new members, residents of the program in particular. We wish you a great year ahead. And so I want to offer a few remarks on the significance and importance of tonight and this work and this program. As some of you know, part of my relationship with Alan was having him then introduce this as my favorite event of the year. And he never lied, so it is true. This is one of my favorite events of the year, if not the favorite event of the year. But let me tell you why. It is because it celebrates the relationship between reading and writing. You know, there's a lot of work written in the 20th century about the relationship of readers and writers, which is more prominent, which comes first, which informs the other. That's a whole other lecture. We're not doing that tonight. But what is important is to recognize the symbiosis between the creation of work and the consumption of work, and then the cycle continues. And so we would have no books without writers. And we have, in this collection, between 20 and 23 million objects, many of which are books. And so each of them reflects the work of individuals, putting pen to paper, putting quill to manuscript, putting stylus to tablet. We have some cuneiform tablets in the collection. Putting finger to typewriter, finger to keyboard, finger to screen, and yes, again, stylus to tablet, although in different form. These works, these ideas are vehicles for free expression and storytelling. We capture them in words and record them for posterity and passing along to current and future generations. It is fitting also that this celebration tonight occurs during Banned Books Week. We do not ban books here at the Boston Public Library. And therefore, we celebrate Banned Books Week because these are works that have come under attack because of their value and their importance for telling stories that some find problematic. And George Orwell warned us against these times. There are those who would steal words themselves. And so, a couple of reminders. Yes, be woke, because it means to be awake to what is happening around us. Critical theory is to understand with a critical lens why things are the way they are, and not to take for granted the systemic structures that we inherit. Promote equity, that everyone may have access to equal opportunity as is their right. Celebrate diversity, for it would be terribly boring if we were all the same, and there is richness among our diversity. And work for inclusion, that our world, our society, our spaces should leave no one behind. And tonight we are reminded by the joy in these works that are presented to us, but we also remember at the library, this is why we live and work under our motto, free to all. So thank you.
David, thank you so much for all of those important words. Most importantly, the one person you haven't met is Alan Andres' wife, Ann Weaver. And I just saw her go. But I'm going to ask you, Ann, to just stand so everyone can see you. And thank you. Over the 20-plus years that Alan was with us, he spent so much of his time with the associates, and it was only possible because Anne truly supported him in this work. And so we've come to know her as well. Alan Andres, a beautiful man, his wife, Ann Weaver, a beautiful woman, and we're glad that she could be with us tonight, and hopefully lots of evenings in the future. And so as we get prepared to say goodnight, I want to thank you all for being with us this evening and for sharing in the journeys of these three writers that we presented tonight. And I want to encourage you to plan to come back to this auditorium. Next month, we'll have our annual Pierce performance. And this year, it's a staged reading about the friendship and friction between two of the best-known women in the American abolitionist movement. There's Lydia Mariah Childs and Mariah Weston Chapman. It's called A Revolution of Character, and we're hosting 3 performances on November 12th, 13th, and 15th. And we hope we get to see you then. And until then, have a wonderful evening and a fantastic literary life. Good night.